Good evening. I've been feeling pretty inspired recently by some of Alistair Wilson's ambient modular patches that he put out. I haven't really made any ambient stuff before, with one exception. Haven't really experimented with it much. So tonight's goal was to build an ambient patch. I've just uploaded a pure recording of just the patch, but in this video I wanted to just do a quick breakdown of what we have. So I started with a base drone using this cloud generator here. This cloud generator is a real go-to for me at the moment. It's just like so much easier than hooking up a heap of saws and detuning them. It just does it for you. So this sounds like, turn the whole thing up. There it is. So a little bit of spread, and I actually thought I had some drift in the pitch at some point, but I must have taken that out. Okay, no, I added it back in. So I'm just have a filter that I open up just a very little bit using this sine wave, really slow sine wave here. The CV contribution's very little on that. But so that just sort of runs along under it. So that's just a simple base, constant drone. Then I wanted to play around with some random pitches. So for this, I used Foundry, just because it's my go-to sequencer at the moment. And on each note, I just did the C minor scale. You can see it going up here. And then I put the run mode into random. So every time it receives a clock, it picks a random pitch and it sends it out to the this macro oscillator, which I've set on fold. And let's turn it up. So that then feeds into this delay unit with random feedback. I wanted random time as well, but this particular delay module doesn't really respond well to changing time. You get a lot of distracting bits and pieces. So we'd probably want to experiment with different delay units, but running that through a high pass filter over here, and also a wormholizer just to change the tone a bit, and then into a heap of reverb. So that's the pitch. The is randomly panned using this brain sample and hold, which I talked about in the last vlog, and also the timbre and color of the note are randomized as well, which is pretty neat. I'll use the rampage for envelope generator. I really like this rampage, just a really quick go-to to create simple stuff like that. So random. Oh, and then the way I set up Foundry was I ran the output of a really slow clock further divided into a Bernoulli gate, which then will randomly trigger the clock based on a probability. The probability changes over time using a really slow LFO. About as slow as this LFO goes. So it probably takes, I don't know, a minute or something. So it means that we'll get periods of busyness and periods of emptiness in the bells. So that's pretty cool. And then what else? Oh yeah, and then when I was making the drone, I accidentally came across this sound in the macro oscillator and thought, oh, I kind of want that too. So what that does, you can hear that, it's like a wob, 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 wob. And so with this one, it's always on at a really low volume, but then this rampage, when we trigger it, oh, actually it just got triggered then. So wait, I'll turn that off for a second. You can kind of hear it coming in and then falling out again. So it's not really there at the moment, and then it's really subtle just underneath. So that was pretty cool. But then I started playing around with different pitches, and an interesting thing about this is the pitch changes the frequency of the wobble. So I just picked a couple of extra pitches on track B, Voct there, and we actually get, I'm going to turn it up so we can hear it. So that there is probably, it's a low, pretty much I did a low C, which doesn't really wobble much at all. And then I did a D as well, which is quite dissonant actually. Oh, there we go. You can hear it kind of. Now obviously it's going to be a lot more subtle than that. But yeah, just added this for some random pulses. These get triggered by another Bernoulli gate here with an even lower probability than the first one. So they trigger pretty rarely, but just wanted to add a bit of extra movement in there. And then, yeah, whole thing through a heap of reverb. So that's it, pretty basic. Oh, I also changed the BPM of the clock because I found, particularly in the busy sections, the bells felt a bit too regular, and this was the quickest way I could figure out how to just make them a bit more random. So the clock, I didn't want it to feel like it was on a grid or anything. Anyway, that's the patch. That was my night's experimentation. I had fun. Hope you had fun. Hope you learned something. And I'll see you next time.